Kemi stood at the far end of the hall, watching the models rehearse. From behind the black partition, she could see her team adjusting outfits, pinning hems, steaming fabric. Every detail mattered. This was her first major show since the scandal and the last chance to reclaim her name. But the hair was wrong. Too quiet in some places, too busy in others. Something was off. Zubi, her assistant, appeared at her side. I counted again. One piece is missing. Kemi turned sharply. What? The orange fringe gown. It's not in the rack. Her stomach dropped. That gown was the showstopper. The one piece every editor would photograph. The one design she had poured her soul into after long nights on a sewing machine that whined with every stitch. Check backstage. Every hanger, every box, she said, masking the panic rising in her voice. She nodded and ran off. Kemi tried to focus, but a knot twisted in her chest, and then she heard laughter, familiar, arrogant, the kind that didn't belong to anyone struggling. She turned. Fadeke, flanked by two models and a coordinator. She laughed like someone who had never tasted consequences. Her horror sucked the light from the room. Her eyes, sharp as needles, slid over Kemi with casual cruelty. And then Kemi saw it. On a mannequin behind Fadeke, a gown, a stolen design, perfectly fitted, already styled, with a different label pinned to the bust. House of Love, Fadeke's brand. Kemi's throat tightened, her nails dug into her palm. She walked toward them. That gown, that's mine, she said calmly, pointing. Fadeke didn't even blink. I'm sorry, but Kemi stepped closer. You took my design. Fadeke tilted her head, smiling like she had just had a child make up a story. Oh, darling, are we doing this again? Kemi didn't speak. She reached out and touched the gown. Her whole handiwork was unmistakable. The bead placement, the secret inner stitch at the waist, the fabric lining she had dyed by hand. Fadeke leaned in, voice low. You are accusing me in front of witnesses. Be careful, Kemi. You remember what happened the last time? Kemi's jaw clenched. Last time, there had been no proof. Last time, she had broken down. But this time, there was something different. She looked beyond Fadeke to one of the new high-interns holding a garment bag. The girl looked nervous. She had the posture of someone hiding something, and she kept glancing at Kemi, then away, like she wanted to say something but was terrified to speak. Interesting. Kemi said nothing. She just smiled. We will let the audience decide tonight. And with that, she turned and walked away, heart pounding, mind racing. Zubi reappeared moments later. I didn't find it, she said. I did, Kemi replied. Zubi frowned. What are you going to do? Kemi's eyes stayed locked on Fadeke in the distance. I'm going to let her walk right into her own trap. She wasn't ready to strike, not yet. First, she needed proof, and second, she needed the intent to talk. But time was running out. Kemi leaned against the backstage wall, eyes closed, letting the sands of the runway melt into a hum. Her body was in the present, but her mind began to sleep. Back to the day everything unraveled, Kemi stood barefoot in a small sunlit studio in Surulere. The floor was covered in fabric scraps, beads, and coffee-stained sketches. It was 2 days before her first major showcase, an opportunity earned through a community fashion grant. She had worked on the pieces for 6 months. No electricity, she sewed by candlelight. No money for a generator, she stitched by hand. Her fingers had bled, but her heart had never been fuller. Then Fadeke had walked in. Kemi had idolized her. A mentor, a woman who had made it. When Fadeke asked to visit the studio, Kemi felt honored. You are the one everyone is whispering about, Fadeke had said, admiring a gown. Such raw talent. She had smiled, taken photos, asked casual questions like, where do you source your beads? Who does your dyeing? Kemi answered everyone, wide-eyed and naive. She had no idea she was handing her dreams to a thief. Kemi's big night arrived. She sat in the crowd, clutching her seat with excitement, and then the lights dimmed. A voice echoed through the speakers. Next up, House of Love presents the Echo Sunrise Collection. The models came out. Kemi's heart stopped. They were her designs, her colors, her patterns, even her signature pleated sleeves, but the name wasn't hers. The applause roared for Fadeke. Kemi stood up in shock, then slowly sank back down. The crowd was already clapping, already praising. No one would believe her now. No one cared about the girl from Surulere with no pedigree. The memory burned in Kemi's chest like acid. She opened her eyes. Fadeke was still out there, laughing as though that betrayal had been a mere business move, a power play, a moment of strategy, not sabotage. But Kemi remembered it all the days after. The blogs, the fashion influencers who turned their backs, the phone call from the show organizers. We were told you copied someone else's work. We are sorry. We can't be associated with plagiarism. The night she collapsed in her room, watching Fadeke on TV, smiling, giving an interview, wearing one of Kemi's own pieces and calling it a vision from my sleepless night. That night, Kemi had sworn she would disappear, not in shame, but in strategy. Kemi worked under a fake name. She stitched uniforms and Ankara skirts for women who barely glanced at her. The old tailor, Mama Ronke, never asked questions. She just handed her work and paid on Fridays. It was there that Kemi learnt patience, learned how to observe, to survive, and most importantly, how to watch from the shadows. Kemi. It was Zubi again. She handed her a note, torn from a sketch pad, one line scribbled. Meet me behind loading bay at 7:45 p.m. I know what she did. S. Kemi stared at the note. Her heartbeat quickened. Was this real or another trap? Her eyes darted to the clock, 7:33 p.m. If this was who she thought it was, the nervous intern with the shifting eyes, then things were about to shift. She took a slow, deep breath. It was time to leave the shadows and begin the next move. The night air behind the loading bay was thick with heat and tension. Floodlights buzzed overhead, casting shadows on the concrete. Kemi stood still, her eyes fixed on the rusted metal door. 7:45 p.m. No one. She tightened her grip on the note, now damp in her palm. Then, footsteps. The intern appeared, skinny frame, hoodie pulled up, head low like he was already regretting this. He looked both ways, then crept closer. I don't have much time. Kemi's eyes narrowed. Who are you afraid of? He didn't answer immediately. His hands trembled as he pulled out his phone, opened a voice memo, but before he could speak, slam. The door beside them burst open. A woman's voice sparked. Dayo, what do you think you are doing? It was Fadeke's assistant, Belinda. Cold-eyed, ruthless, she grabbed the boy's arm like she owned him. Are you stupid? You think you can betray her and walk away clean? Kemi stepped forward. He came to me. Belinda scoffed. Of course he did. That's what rats do when they think the ship is sinking. She yanked Dayo's phone and threw it hard against the wall. It shattered. Kemi's heart pounded. She had nothing. No proof. No voice recording, and now Dayo looked like he might cry. Belinda leaned in close to Kemi's face. You really think you are ready to play Fadeke's league? Stay in your lane. Then she shoved the door open and dragged the intern away, leaving Kemi standing in silence, a cold gust of humiliation washing over her. Back inside the building, Kemi sat alone in the emergency stairwell, head on her knees. Was this a mistake? All these months building a collection, plotting a comeback, and now her one lead gone. She remembered her father's words. You don't fight back with fists, you fight back with your mind, quietly, strategically. She pulled herself up. She couldn't stop now. She wouldn't. Back in her hotel room later that night, Kemi threw her bag onto the bed and collapsed into the chair, shoes still on. As she dug through her things to pull out her sketch pad, something strange fell out. A flash drive. No label, no notes. Her eyes widened. She plugged it into her laptop with shaky hands. A folder opened. Only one file. Play video. She hesitated, then clicked. The footage was grainy, but the voices were clear. It was a private office, familiar shelves, gold frames, Fadeke's voice. She doesn't have the guts. Even if she suspects, she has nothing. I buried the paperwork, the sketches, everything. She will just look like a bitter wannabe. Another voice, Belinda's, chimed in. And Dayo? He is harmless. I've got him under control. One post from me and his career is dead. Fadeke laughed, cold, confident. Let her come. I eat girls like her for breakfast. Kemi stared at the screen, her lips slowly curling into a smile. She didn't know who recorded this or how it ended up in her bag, but she knew what it was: leverage. And finally, proof. She closed the laptop, lifted her phone, texted Zubi. I need you. Midnight, same place. This time, she wouldn't be begging for help. This time, she would be planning a takedown. And Fadeke wouldn't see it coming. Kemi's heart raced as she waited at the loading bay at midnight. The city's softened around her like a distant drumbeat. Zubi arrived, eyes cautious but determined. She handed her the flash drive. We need to leak this tonight. Zubi nodded, already pulling out her phone. But just as they moved to leave, a shadow flickered nearby. Before Kemi could react, a hand clamped over her mouth. It was Dayo, his eyes wide, trembling. I'm sorry, Kemi. I never wanted to hurt you, but they have my family. He put the flash drive from her hand and dashed into the night. Kemi stood frozen, the sting of betrayal cutting deeper than the Lagos cold. Zubi grabbed her hand. We are not done yet. Back in Fadeke's penthouse, Dayo handed the flash drive to Belinda. She smiled coldly. You did well, Dayo. You just saved your own neck. Kemi now has no proof, a traitor in her midst, and a countdown to the next fashion week where Fadeke will launch a new line, one built on stolen dreams and lies. But Kemi, she's not giving up. The sun was just rising over Lagos when Kemi sat alone in a cramped apartment, the weight of betrayal pressing down like the humid air outside. The flash drive was gone, stolen by Dayo, the boy she once trusted. She felt like she was falling deeper into darkness, but then her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I know what happened. Meet me at Freedom Park. Come alone. Her heart skipped. A lifeline or another trap? At Freedom Park, Kemi scanned the quiet early crowd. Then she saw her. Auntie Tola, a former top designer and secret mentor to many young women in the Lagos fashion scene. Once thought retired, she had been watching quietly. Auntie Tola smiled, eyes sharp but kind. I heard what happened, girl. You are fighting alone. But you don't have to. She handed Kemi a small envelope. Inside, copies of hidden contracts and emails showing Fadeke's corrupt deals. I've been gathering this for months. Fadeke's empire isn't as solid as she thinks. Kemi's mind raced. This was more than just stolen designs. It was corruption, bribery, and blackmail. Suddenly, a shadow fell over them. Auntie Tola, You shouldn't be here. It was Belinda's voice, cold and threatening. You are both walking on thin ice. Kemi and Auntie Tola exchanged a quick glance. Their war wasn't over. Kemi's phone vibrated as she and Auntie Tola slipped through the crowded streets of Lagos. Every glance felt like it could be Belinda watching from the shadows. She's ruthless, Auntie Tola whispered. Belinda won't hesitate to destroy anyone who gets in her way. They ducked into a small cafe, sitting in a corner where they could watch every exit. Kemi's fingers trembled as she drafted a message to her followers, preparing to leak the new evidence. Suddenly, the cafe door swung open. A tall figure stepped inside. Belinda, her eyes scanned the room and locked onto Kemi's. The hair thickened. Belinda smiled thinly, taking a seat at a nearby table, her voice low but deadly. You really think you can bring down Fadeke? You are playing with fire, and fire burns. Kemi's heart pounded, but she met Belinda's gaze without flinching. Maybe, but I'm not afraid to get burnt. Outside, a black SUV idled quietly. Inside, Dayo stared at his phone, a conflicted look shadowing his face. Was he still Belinda's pawn, or was something shifting in his heart? The grand runway was packed. Flash bulbs popped like thunder. The city's elite gathered to witness Fadeke's latest collection, a shimmering tribute to power and wealth. Backstage, Kemi's heart pounded beneath her calm exterior. She was ready. Auntie Tola whispered in her ear, Remember, all eyes will be on you tonight. The lights dimmed as Fadeke's new collection debuted to thunderous applause. She stood backstage in her gold-trimmed agbada, surrounded by cameras and power brokers whispering her praises. Backstage, Kemi's fingers trembled around the USB drive. The moment had come, but as she stepped forward toward the main stage, Belinda blocked her path. Turn around, Kemi. You don't belong here. Kemi looked past her and saw Dayo standing in the shadows. Their eyes met. A moment passed, then Dayo moved. He shoved Belinda aside just long enough for Kemi to slip onto the stage. The audience blinked in confusion as the spotlight shifted unexpectedly. Kemi raised the mic. Before the next model walks out, you need to hear the truth behind the stitches. The designs you are praising tonight, they were stolen from me. A sharp murmur swept through the crowd. A few people scoffed. Who is this girl? Is it another PR stunt? Fadeke strode onto the stage, her voice sharp as glass. She's mentally unstable. This is just a bitter ex-employee looking for relevance. The crowd hesitated. Their loyalty shifted with the wind. Kemi's voice shook, but she forced strength into it. If I'm lying, let the files speak for themselves. She plugged in the USB. The screen flickered. For a moment, black. Fadeke smiled. Then, a photo of Fadeke's email account, a contract with Kemi's stolen sketches, Belinda's voice on audio. If Kemi talks, we bury her. That girl doesn't know who she's dealing with. Gasp erupted. Still, Fadeke laughed, defiant. Anyone can fake emails and voiceovers. You call this evidence? Then, a new video played. Dayo, sitting alone, facing the camera. My name is Dayo. I worked with Fadeke and Belinda, and I helped steal from Kemi, but not anymore. I have proof. He held up his phone with the original export files, timestamps, and receipts, all linked to Kemi's name. The room went silent. A woman in the front row, one of Fadeke's biggest sponsors, stood up and walked out. Others followed. Security moved in. Fadeke launched toward Kemi, furious. This isn't over, but the audience didn't look at her anymore. They were staring at Kemi and clapping, slowly at first, then louder, as police quietly questioned Fadeke backstage. Kemi stood on the runway, back straight, eyes shining. She didn't just climb the ladder, she rebuilt it.